Funniest thing happened to me. I was taking a break, right? And talking on the phone to make a video. And a guy on the bike, while riding by, drops a cigarette right in my hand. He's like, "Here." I'm like, "What the hell is this? Huh? Whoa, cigarette, whoa. Huh? Do I know that guy?" So either one or two things happened. He thought because I was taking a break and kneeing down because I'm hurt, I must be doing something on the ground. Well, I must be trying to get cigarette butts. And, or he looked familiar to me. And I have lent out a lot of cigarettes at my store to people. I kept a pack under the desk for the regulars in case they come in. Because there's one elderly guy who gets paid his Social Security on the 3rd. And what I've done is I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll buy a pack. When it runs out on the 3rd, you can buy another one, stick it under there, and you'll always have cigarettes. And then he bought a second one and said, if anybody else runs out, give them these, okay? So I stuck it under there. So I've given out lots of cigarettes to regulars and people when they try to use their card for a pack and the card doesn't run and they're walking out like, oh, fuck. I'm like, hey, buddy, cancellation prize, here you go. I'll go outside and give them a smoke. I don't give it them in the store. I'm allowed to. My boss doesn't care, but there's no selling Lucy, so you don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. So I just tell them, hey, meet me outside in a moment. I'll give you a smoke. And they're not even mine. We keep it under the register they give out. Anyways, so he looked like one of those people at my stores. So he probably was just returning the favor, thinking, oh, what is he on the ground for? Here you go. Oh, misunderstandings. And of course, he's riding a bike past me, so it's not like I could even answer the guy. Nice of him, though, to do that for random people. Well, actually, that's a thing. People don't do that for random people while riding a bike. And he did look like familiar to me, so he probably was one of the customers. I get so many of them. I recognize them by their orders. You are Pall Mall Orange 100s. You're a slushy, alcohol beverage, and once in a while candy. You are running your card for cigarettes, and you never works the 5 last times every month you try to run it. And okay, that's that. I know you buy the guy who gets paid on the 3rd buys LMM Blue 100s, but then at the end of the month runs out of money and keeps trying his card until his money comes in. He has senile behavior as well. But most stores try to throw him out. I'm like, that's so mean. The guy doesn't know how to check his balance. He's going senile. He's elderly. He smokes. He buys a lot of cigarettes for at least the first 2 weeks of every month. And then you're going to throw him out because he doesn't know if his card works. The part that people get mad about is his card won't work the first time. They don't come back in 2 days later. Try it again. It's the same card. You know your money comes in on the 3rd. Why would it change on the 14th, 16th, 18th? It never does. And he's been doing this for year after year after year after year at all the gas stations. And what's even worse is he'll try the card at some other gas stations, and he's not trying to scam cigarettes out of anybody. I checked. That's the only reason why I gave him that deal is because I knew he wasn't trying to do anything. When people offer him cigarettes, he goes, no, that's okay. And he walks away. But because he buys from me, and he felt comfortable enough. I'm like, I'll buy him this time. I'll put him under the counter. Here you go. Come back in and grab them as you need them. And you can buy a pack. The next pack on the 3rd you buy. Keep one under the counter to replace it. And when you start running out, I'll give you some. How's that? And he did so, but he wanted to buy 2 packs. One for other people, one for himself. That's not bad. Not a bad guy, huh? Oh, by the way, also, my manager, if we ever wanted a pack, all we have to do is send a text and we can write it off. Well, not write it off. We ring it in the computer as paid, and we have money in the safe to do that with, and then we just have to return it. Even though all my coworkers who do that, they don't fucking know how to return stuff. They don't understand that it's like they don't pay me enough. That's what I hear. They don't pay me enough to do my job. They don't pay me enough to pay it back. They don't pay me enough to work hard. They don't pay me enough to show up. They don't pay me enough to do this. They don't pay me enough to do that. I hear it all the fucking time. Now, they're right. Now, they should still be doing their jobs, though, but they are right. If you are working 60 hours and you are living outdoors and having the couch surf and live in cars and you're working 2 jobs like Jess did, yeah, you're right. They don't pay you enough to have to put up with shit. Yeah, you're right. You work hard, you work long hours, and you don't even have a place to live. That wouldn't happen in my father's day or my brother's day or my sister's day. When they were in their 20s, I doubt that they were working 2 jobs and still couldn't find a place to live. I highly doubt it. But a lot of people who are single, they don't have a family around to suck off of, or they have a family sucking off of them, they have to make it their way. And Jess, her family's in North Carolina, and they ask her for money. When her father got sick, they needed somebody to look after her. They called her to do it. So then she left one job because she couldn't do all 3. And she's not even staying with him. Meanwhile, he goes back wherever he came from. It's like, what the hell is going on with today's society? You got all your family in North Carolina, but your father's someplace around here, and he's getting sick, and you don't live with him, but yet he wants your help. That's kind of nuts. So, and she shows text messages and whatever, and there's a lot of people also injured while working long hours. I've seen people who missing toes, and then they missing a foot, and they're still not on Social Security. Now they're only working as they only have 2 toes. Yes, they're missing 3 of their toes on their left foot. They're diabetic. They're overweight, and they're born like this. He's a hard worker. He eats healthy. He works at Walgreens, for goodness sake. And yet they have him pushing all the heavy carts in the freezer. Out of all the people that push the carts, push all the Gatorades and carts and do the cooler, you pick the guy missing toes. And then when they removed his foot, he still had to work, and he still was refused Social Security. 7 years for that man. It's happening up and down society. It's bad. You got people like my father who are able to use the system to get Social Security, and then you got people like me who have real disabilities, and they're trying to get the doctors to treat them, but we can't get treatment because doctors and rich people have already gone and taken the money. They've already made up their stories. They've already done their thing. They've already used up your life and your benefits. Same thing with Angly Beth, a girl I knew. Her father beat her. They came from another country. The father spoke no English. The doctors took advantage of her in Massachusetts. Her mind started to get worse and worse as people would hurt her and the doctors would drug her. Her father got Social Security. Now she's 37 and she can't really function in society. And every time she moves in with her father gets aggressive, takes control of her money, and throws her out while spending her money on the rent. So she's living in shelters while he pays his bills with her rent in her 30s. Same thing happens to movie stars and singers like Britney Spears. If you've done research on that case. So I don't like Britney Spears at all. I didn't know about this when it happened. I was watching a lot of documentaries and learning about how the system is taking advantage and how parents take advantage of their children, and how a lot of the system has been built to allow rich parents or parents to take advantage of their children to benefit, and then their children are the ones that have to pay the price. And one of the names that came up was Britney Spears. Apparently, her parents were sucking her dry while making her work long, long hours, and they didn't do it to her benefit. In court, she won her money back, and apparently this is a common occurrence. They'll sign contracts where even when these people are in their 30s, their parents are still collecting the checks, living off of it, living in big mansions and $500 houses, while the person making the money just lives in a frickin' apartment, and they should be lucky they get it, is what the parents say. Meanwhile, all the parents did was give them classes or something like that. The person doing the work would be the singer. And there's a lot of these contracts and ways where parents are taking advantage of the system, or doctors are taking advantage of the system. And you know who the number one person that gets sucked dry when these systems and these scams and these grifts are being ran? Children. Children that have no rights, so they're getting taken advantage of constantly. And then these children grow up. And then what do you think happens then? They've been sucked dry. So you have a generation. You got the 90s, you got the 2000s, you got 2010s. You have these problems where wealthy people who have money and attorneys put their children out there to get hurt or be taken advantage of or do something they're not supposed to. And then when those children grow up in their 30s, they're in situations which can be very dangerous, bad, unsafe, or where they're being sucked dry. Now, on Britney Spears' occasion, she was having her money sucked dry, and her parents were enriching themselves as much as possible, and she barely could get any help that she needed. And I didn't know this. This is only one side of it. I always thought that her parents did this because she was some drug addict out there. But when I read the case, yes, she was a drug addict. But later you found out that the judge had to award her money back because the parents were evil, spending gold watches worth 50 grand, taking private trips on private planes, buying giant houses, taking really expensive vacations, all on the daughter's money. Meanwhile, the daughter was living in like apartments, having shitty rehabs back in the day. It was very clear that the parents were trying to use the money for themselves because they thought the daughter was, dressing up sexy on stage. We're going to take advantage of her. And apparently the parents are the ones who wanted her to get half naked. That was like, what the fuck? Apparently, Britney Spears' parents wrote in the contract that they wanted her to be half naked because it would bring in more money, and they signed off on it. Not Britney. Britney Spears did not sign off to be that naked at a young age. Instead, the parents influenced this. And you could see this from the contracts who signed and stuff like that. It was a really interesting documentary, and I've seen like 3. And one of them, I thought it was nothing. It was on the news. I remembered it. I saw some story on it. Oh, well. But then when I watched a documentary in Britney Spears' life story, the bio, I was like, oh, shit. Yeah, it was only mentioned in a separate topic. And then I looked it up because it was like, wow. But one thing else I found is that when parents enrich themselves like that, they have excuses that come from hate, like what Hitler had. Like, we get to take advantage and we could suck them and we could hurt our children all we want because she dresses scampy and she did drugs. So we get to go on a plane and suck all our money dry and do whatever we want. My father did similar stuff in a different way. His wife kept me under the influence of drugs I didn't need while slipping me pills. She also made stories about doctors. And when something happened, like I did a science experiment with slug slime, She would try to make up stories about me being homicidal, have me naked in front of strangers, many, many different interns who work for Lowell Treatment Center. They didn't always have nurses available, and you don't get women nurses. So what they do is they have interns who are about anywhere from 26 to 32, and they usually do the trick. These people just sit in a chair all day. That's the only job, is to kind of like watch you children. They just sit in a chair, and if there's a fight or something, they stand up and go get the real nurses and the real staff. They're like interns. They're assistants. They're staff. Well, basically, the doctors and the nurses say, "Hey, you do this. Hey, you do this. Go get him. Go do this." So at nighttime, late at night, these are the only people there. So when parents bring the kids back, either at night or during the day or from a day meeting, a lot of the times, that's who you'll get, is one of these. I guess they're medical interns. They're people who want to become psychiatrists or nurses, and they're interning. Because I asked them, how do you get a job? Oh, no, we're intern. And I know this for a fact because one of them was a decent dude. I used to talk with him, and he saw me naked as well, but he didn't really want to. He didn't spread my cheeks or nothing. And there was another guy who was more heavy set. Didn't see him much. He brought us to the kitchen one time. And but he didn't make me really drop my pants or anything or check my cheeks. He made me get into my underwear and then said, "You know what? You never bring anything in here. Just, we're good." So they watch you naked and they make you bend down, spread your cheeks, squat. What am I going to have, a slug and a match up my ass? What the fuck are they checking me for? I'm in there because I held a match to slug slime. Oh, that's right. My mother thinks I'm homicidal. She's telling them that I'm homicidal and I'm hurting animals and I'm going to be a serial killer. That's right. My mother's making up stories again. So they probably think I'm bringing up a gun up my ass or a flamethrower or a big sharp knife or an awl or ice pick or something must be up my ass. I would do something like that according to my mother. These are the type of fantasies my mother tells about me. Zach might have a chainsaw up his ass, even though that's an exaggeration. My mother would probably say, who knows what he would put up there? Yeah, he probably does have a weapon up there. That's more likely something she would say. But no matter what she said homicidal behavior, homicidal tendencies. What was it? He's hurting animals. Like slug slime is an animal. Like the slime around the slug is somehow an animal, and the slug was never hurt. As soon as it had any reaction, it was stopped and it could go on its way. Now it did curl up, but it wasn't burned. It would have gone. It didn't melt. There was no puddle, And by the way, I was at a wedding one time, right? And I'm grabbing a bunch of snails just because they're big, giant snails everywhere. They're everywhere. The snails crawling everywhere. And people are telling me how you can eat them. You can eat them raw. You can eat them. And I'm like, gross, gross, gross. But I'm just collecting the snails, and I'm having fun doing it. And then one of the waiters and then another person come by and go, here. And they give me salt. And they say, put the salt on it. And then they're laughing. I go, why? What will happen? It will melt. If I put salt on a snail, it will melt. And the waiter says, yep, this is at some wedding. There's some wedding going on. There's some snails on a railing. The waiter comes out telling me that if I put, here's some salt. And I'm like, what? What would the salt do? And, there's two people involved. There's a waiter who gives me the salt and tells me that it will melt. And then there's the original guy who tells me I should put salt on it. Okay, I don't understand, but this sounds cool. It will disappear? Yeah, I start asking around. They'll go, it will disappear. It will melt. You put salt on a snail, it will melt. Well, if that's true, then how do people eat the fucking thing? Huh? Tell me that. That can't be true. Because people eat snails. And I'm only like, I don't know, 12. So I walk over to the two snails and I put some salt on it. The waiter and people tell me it's going to melt. It foams up. it just foams up a little bit. Not exactly a melting. I wanted to see a magic trick. These people made it sound like that snail was going to disappear before my eyes. This looks like it's bubbling. Looks like the snail's blowing bubbles. I guess that's kind of cool. And then I start going around telling people how the snail melted and oh, how cool this is. Because it's a science experiment type stuff. I've always had that. But when my mother finds out, do you think she asked me where I heard it or who told me about the salt? Or do you think she tries to get any understanding or context? No. He's hurting animals. He came up with this. He wants to cause pain in a snail. He's ruining weddings. Yes, we need to medicate him seriously because he put salt on a snail. So, Mom, why don't you go medicate the waiter who originally played a game with me telling me it would disappear with the salt? Why don't you talk to the man who originally got me on the quest who said that I should put salt on a snail? Why don't you talk to those people and tell them how they need drugs? Oh, that's right. You guys don't have a fucking big dick. You guys are small dick shit. You guys have small testicles and small dicks. You know how to yell at somebody. You know how to belittle children and adults. You know how to blame people. You know how to call people shithead names. You know how to make stories up about them. You know even how to make feedback loops and then try to use your own feedback loop as proof. You know all about that stuff. But trying to get context and understanding, using your brain to make this world a better place, trying to figure out how certain things work, how children's minds work, all that. No. They don't have any like they can't stand up to a murderer. Like this is the type of people they are. What say? Well, like Haas, they're the type of people that could have, they could be 280 pounds, giant muscles, come from someplace in the South, big giant mustache, big guy, and he's sitting in a fucking tent while two other people get murdered, and he's going to lose his property in the morning, and the police are going to be sniffing around, but he's not going to do anything because he's small dick shit. So who the fuck gets out of their tent and stops this and gets this guy to safety? That way, the cops don't come down and ruin everybody's tents, stealing all our shit, lighting us on fire. That way, we don't have to have an investigation down here. Instead, the investigation will be at the police station because we don't want this